What's up, everybody? It's Wabacha, and I want to take a little bit of time to talk about a couple of things right now. The first one, of course, would be the upcoming skill reworks in patch 3.3, Path of Exile. GGG just announced this, and it is on the Reddit. And, you know, people have had some mixed opinions about it, and I thought I would chime in. I'm not going to read through all of this because I'd imagine a lot of people have already read it. But more or less, they're going to rework skills in a manner much similar to the way that Riot reworks champions. They don't just... Well, I mean, of course, Riot does constantly like tweak their numbers a little bit here and there, and I think GGG can be better about doing that overall. When champions are in for a rework in League of Legends, there's a huge overhaul to the identity of the champion and how the kit works with the identity, and for the most part, their reworks are really good. And you know, they're honestly really good. So I like the fact that GGG is going at it this route. I understand that there are a lot of people who, you know, would just say, just give all the AoE skills their AoE back, and just add damage or add numbers to these skills. I understand that argument, and I agree with it to a point. Like, I think AoE skills got gutted way too much with the AoE changes. But I still appreciate this approach, and even if they, you know, I think somewhere along the lines they say that they're aiming for 9 reworks each content patch, even if 2 or 3 or 4, you know, somewhere between 2 and 4 of those skills are actually playable, I think that's a big success when it comes to actual reworks. Because some skills are just always going to be better. People are always going to like playing certain skills over others. I mean, that's just the way it is. And I appreciate this approach that they're going. So I think it's definitely worth, you know, mentioning. I like what they're talking about here with Cold Snap. I'll just go ahead and read this part. Cold Snap is one such skill on our hit list. We're currently trying out a version of the skill that still does the instant large damage hit in a small area, with values increased to bring closer to scaling of other cold damage skills. Which the scaling for cold damage skills, it's like Frostbolt deals so much damage compared to everything else, it's ridiculous. While also releasing a larger pulse that chills and applies a cold damage over time effect to nearby enemies. I actually think this is really cool, and this could potentially play into some really interesting builds. Anyway, that brings me to kind of the next thing I want to talk about a little bit, and that is, let's see. I want to pull it up. I want to talk about Saboteur a little bit, because that's been a topic of discussion. There's a thread that I want to pull up here so everyone could see it. This thread right here. So I want to pull up this thread right here, and it is the meta shift report on Reddit. I thought it was really interesting. I really liked it, and I kind of just want to talk a little bit about Saboteur with it, because a lot of players, Tark is doing a lot with traps right now, and you know, he's definitely put his opinion out there about it, and a lot of the stuff is kind of going to be echoing some of the things that you know, he has said or other players have said, because honestly, most players have been saying the same things for a really long time. For example, people want to play a fire trap build, but Ignite sucks, and Fire Trap has a 3-second cooldown for whatever reason. But there's something else that I want to point out about Saboteur specifically that makes trapping not very appealing, and honestly I think it's in chain reaction. So there's a lot of inconsistencies. I'm going to go ahead and go into the game for this. There's a lot of inconsistencies with things like Blast Cascade or Master Sapper down here, also Tinker Skin, and then anything else that allows you to generate something off of a trap being triggered by an enemy. And those inconsistencies mean that with chain reaction, where your traps trigger when nearby traps are also triggered, that means an enemy is technically only triggering one trap. They're not triggering all of your traps, they're triggering one trap, and then the rest of them are again triggered by the trap. So it's an inconsistency with chain reaction and mechanics like that makes trapping feel a little bad. In comparison, Blast Cascade, if you it says 15% chance to gain a power charge when your mine is detonated targeting an enemy. So your mines will always more or less target an enemy when enemies are around and within range. So you're always going to be getting your power charges, while with traps you don't really. It's really inconsistent. So that's the first thing. The other thing, though, is honestly like the fact that traps have, you know, a cooldown attached to them means that when you really need a lot of damage, you just can't get it. You are always limited in your potential damage with traps because you just can't keep throwing them. And honestly, the cooldown recovery, I don't even think it really helps too much. Like, you're better off going another ascendancy for traps and just getting a really big, large hit and using a skill like Lightning Trap or Ice Trap, because they at least have 2-second cooldowns. And then on top of that, you have the Trap Support Gem, which also has a 4-second cooldown. So I think maybe if they changed all the skills to have a 2-second cooldown, that would at least make trapping a little bit better. Maybe they could have the Trap Support Gem have a 3-second cooldown. I don't really see a big problem with that. That's definitely an area where I could see just changing the numbers a little bit could benefit you. But here's the other thing too. When it comes to a miner versus a trapper for Saboteur, the tree is just way better for the miner, because honestly, I'm dealing plenty enough damage. I have plenty of AoE right now. I don't feel like I need Demolition Specialist, and I'm thinking about going Explosives Expert, because I'm going to be getting more or less the same thing. I mean, I'll get more AoE out of this, and I could technically get another mine on top of the mines that I'm placing, which isn't as good as it seems. And the 100% increased mine arming speed, like that's pretty good too, but it's kind of this as well. I mean, whenever I'm like really in need of putting down a lot of damage, I drop a spell totem and I just spam my mines. That's all I do. So there's no reason to really go Demolitionist. So that means you could go Pyromaniac, and this is exactly how I leveled. I went Pyromaniac, I went Bore in the Shadows, then I went Bomb Specialist. And as soon as I do my Uber Lab, I'm probably going to get Explosive Experts. And you know, there's just like the ascendancy is a little bit better. Now, I could see switching Chain Reaction with Perfect Crime. I think that might not be too bad of an idea if you could just swap those around. But then you still run into the problem with the inconsistencies of your traps being triggered by other traps that are nearby. That's kind of, again, another problem. If I could maybe make some suggestion to, to at least give traps a little bit more leeway, it would actually be, and this has nothing to do with traps, but it would be to add cooldown recovery to haste. Now, haste is, an aura that gives you movement speed, cast speed, and attack speed. It's been either loved or hated. Well, I would never say it's never been loved by the community, but it's never been like a really good aura. It's been an aura that an Auramancer has because they have a ton of auras, but it's never really an aura that you just take on its own. Very, very few examples I could think of where you would take haste on its own. But with an Ice Trap build, for example, it is a cold damage spell, right? So you don't have any auras for that. I mean, technically you could go like cold to fire and use anger. You could convert it to fire damage and use anger. But what if we just add cooldown recovery to haste? Because that would at least affect other things as well. That would just give you cooldown recovery for flame dash. It would give you cooldown recovery for traps. It would give you cooldown recovery for presumably war cries. I don't know if that actually works like that. But I just don't see any reason why we can't look at haste with this upcoming skill revamp and just give it cooldown recovery. Why not? Just a little bit. And it could just be like the values of haste are so low for the most part. Just give it, you know, same thing with cooldown recovery. Just give it like 10 to 19% cooldown recovery. I mean, obviously that's pretty high, but I don't know, it's just an idea. I like that. It seems like it wouldn't be bad. It would make some skills feel quite a bit nicer, and it would make haste feel a little bit better on its own, and it's a better trade-off at that point. So, just wanted to share my thoughts. I don't know what else I'm going to be doing this week in terms of Path of Exile. I've been playing a lot of GC Mines. I have a Deadeye that haven't even really been playing, and yeah, so let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. What skills do you want a good rework for? Not just adding numbers, a rework, something actually exciting. Yeah, let me know, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.